Welcome back to Midnight Affair Tales. Thank you for joining us. I came home earlier than usual that evening. The sun was just beginning to set, casting an orange glow across our suburban street. I had picked up Madeline's favorite takeout, pad thai and dumplings, thinking we'd have a quiet night together. I should have known better. As I stepped into the house, I heard her voice. Light, casual, almost playful. Yeah, I'm going on a date tonight. Don't wait up. My grip on the takeout bag tightened. A date? My heart started hammering against my ribs. Was she on the phone? Who was she talking to? I stayed frozen near the doorway listening. No, he has no idea. He's so predictable. He won't even question it. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My body went ice cold. I forced myself to step into the living room. She was standing near the mirror, applying lipstick, wearing a black dress I had never seen before. Going out. My voice was steady, but inside I was screaming. She turned, barely startled. Yeah, with a coworker. She said it so casually as if it were nothing. A date, I repeated, my jaw tightening. She rolled her eyes. Logan, don't be dramatic. It's just dinner. I stared at her, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Did she really think I was that stupid? So, what are you going to do about it? I forced a smile. Have fun. She blinked, clearly thrown off. She expected me to argue, beg, fight. But not this. She laughed. See? This is what I mean. You're so easy. You never get mad, never challenge me. I need excitement. My stomach churned, but I kept my expression blank. Guess I'm just predictable. She grabbed her purse and strutted out the door, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The second the door shut, my entire body tensed. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through her messages. I had already installed tracking software weeks ago. I wasn't stupid, I had seen the signs. The late nights. The guarded phone. The sudden obsession with working out. Trevor Henshaw. Her coworker. Their messages made my blood boil. Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. Finally, some real passion. Unlike my boring husband. I booked us a room at the Palms. Meet me at 8. I exhaled slowly, my pulse hammering. This wasn't a mistake. She wasn't confused or unhappy. She was cruel. Calculated. I wasn't going to lose my temper. That's what she expected. No. I was going to destroy her instead. Trevor Henshaw. 36. Works in sales at her company. Arrogant. Fake smiling bastard with a reputation for sleeping with married women. I stared at his picture on my laptop. He thought he was untouchable. I clicked on his LinkedIn profile. Married. 2 kids. My lips curled into a slow, cold smile. So, you're not just a homewrecker. You're a hypocrite. I scrolled through his company's website, checking the employee ethics policy. Fraternization between coworkers. Grounds for termination. Interesting. I opened my email and started drafting a message. Anonymously, of course. To HR department. I am bringing forward undeniable proof of a workplace affair involving one of your sales managers, Trevor Henshaw. His behavior is unethical, unprofessional, and in clear violation of company policies. Attached are messages, call logs, and timestamps confirming this relationship. I attached the screenshots of their messages. Before hitting send, I smirked. This was just the beginning. Trevor had no idea what was coming for him. The house was too quiet. I sat in the dark, my hands gripping my phone, scrolling through Madeline's messages. Every word felt like a knife in my chest. I can't wait to be alone with you. Logan doesn't suspect a thing. Tonight is all about us, babe. I clenched my jaw, rage crawling through me like wildfire. She was with him right now. Laughing, touching, betraying. My fingers hovered over her contact. Call her? Confront her? No, not yet. That would be too easy. Too predictable. Instead, I called someone else. Detective agency, how can I help you? I need surveillance on 2 people. Discretion is a must. My voice was ice cold. Got a name? Trevor Henshaw. Madeline Whitmore. I want pictures, videos, timestamps. Everything. The investigator hesitated. That'll cost. Money's not an issue. Just get it done. I hung up and stared at my wedding photo on the shelf. The fake smiles. The empty vows. The lies. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about betrayal. And I was going to make them both pay. The next morning I walked into Bennett and Hayes law firm. My lawyer, Marcus Hayes, greeted me with a firm handshake. "You finally ready to pull the trigger?" he asked. I exhaled, nodding. "I want to make sure she walks away with nothing." Marcus smirked. "Smart. We'll freeze assets, redirect funds, and serve divorce papers when she least expects it." "And the house?" I asked. "You paid for it. Stays yours. She won't see a dime." A slow satisfaction curled in my chest. She thought she could cheat and come home like nothing happened? Not this time. Marcus leaned back. "Question is, you want to go nuclear or keep it quiet?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I want her to suffer." He grinned. "Then you came to the right place. What would you do if you caught your wife cheating? Stay silent or destroy her life? Let me know in the comments below." I sat at the kitchen table when Madeline walked in later that night, her hair messy, her makeup slightly smudged. She gave me a fake smile. "Hey babe. Late night at work?" I forced myself to nod, pretending to be clueless. "Yeah. Hope it wasn't too stressful." She sighed dramatically. "You know how it is." Liar. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. I wanted to wipe it off. "Big meeting tomorrow," she added. "I might have to stay late again." "Of course," I said smoothly. "Take all the time you need." Her phone buzzed on the counter. She snatched it up quickly, eyes flicking toward me. "Just work stuff," she mumbled. I smiled, sipping my coffee. "I trust you." Was. She had no idea that while she was sneaking around, I was pulling the ground out from under her feet. I knew she'd lie again. It was in her nature now, second skin, effortless, practiced. Madeline stood by the front door, slipping on her heels, adjusting the strap of her purse. Same fake routine. Same empty words. "I'll be late tonight," she said, not even looking at me. "Another meeting?" I asked, voice calm. She hesitated just for a second. I saw it in the way her fingers gripped the door handle. "Yeah. Big client. Big client. Right." I sipped my coffee, watching her closely. She expected me to believe her. She had grown so comfortable in her deception that she didn't even try to cover her tracks anymore. I stood up, stretching. "I might be out late too," I said casually. She glanced at me, surprised. "Oh? Where?" I smiled. Her sudden interest was amusing. "Just work stuff," I said. She nodded slowly, then quickly grabbed her purse. "All right. Don't wait up." And just like that, she was out the door, rushing to be with him. I checked my phone. The private investigator had already sent me updates. Madeline's car pulled out of the driveway, heading towards the hotel where Trevor had booked a room. I had every detail. The room number. The time she checked in. The time she left. And tonight, I'd finally catch her red-handed. I parked outside the Palms Hotel, leaning back in my seat. The parking lot was dimly lit, but her car was easy to spot. Her red Audi, the one I bought for her. I clenched my jaw. That car should have meant something. Just like our marriage. I scrolled through the text the investigator had forwarded to me. "I miss you. Last night was incredible. Meet me at the Palms again tonight. Room 214. Room 214. I stepped out of my car, walking towards the hotel entrance. The lobby was quiet, polished marble floors reflecting the warm glow of chandeliers. The receptionist barely glanced at me. I walked past her like I belonged there. Elevator doors slid open. I stepped inside. Pressed the button for the third floor. My pulse was steady. My breathing calm. But inside I was raging. The doors opened. I stepped into the hallway, the soft hum of hotel silence surrounding me. Room 214. I stood outside the door. Voices inside, laughter. Madeline's voice. Trevor's voice. I pulled out my phone and hit record. I didn't need to see it to know what was happening inside. But I wanted the proof. This was only the beginning. I sat in my car later that night, listening to the recording. Trevor's cocky laugh. Madeline's soft giggle. Then her voice, sultry and full of betrayal. "I feel so alive with you. Logan never made me feel this way." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I gripped the steering wheel. How long had she been lying to my face? How long had she been thinking I was a fool? I went through more of their messages, scrolling back weeks. Months. I saw how deep her deception ran. She wasn't just having an affair. She was planning a life with him. "Give me a little more time. I'll figure out the money thing." I don't want to leave him broke, but I also want us to be comfortable. Once I get my hands on the house, we'll be set. I froze. She was planning to take my house? Oh, Madeline. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. My heart was no longer broken. It was hardened. Cold. Ready. I deleted our wedding photos from my phone. They meant nothing now. Tomorrow I'd go to the bank. I'd strip every cent from our joint accounts before she could. Tomorrow her world would start to fall apart. The morning sun crept through the blinds as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my black coffee. Today was the day. Madeline strolled into the kitchen like she didn't have a care in the world, still wearing her silk robe, her hair slightly damp from the shower. The scent of his cologne clung to her. She yawned and stretched. "Morning," she mumbled, grabbing the coffee pot. I watched her closely. Did she feel no guilt at all? Not even a shred of remorse? I tapped my fingers against my phone, where I had recordings, texts, bank statements, and surveillance photos lined up like bullets in a loaded gun. She sat across from me, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone. Probably texting Trevor. I cleared my throat. I checked our accounts this morning. Her fingers hesitated over her screen. Oh. Yeah. Weird thing, I noticed a few withdrawals I don't remember making. She blinked, her expression carefully neutral. Maybe you forgot? I gave her a cold smile. You're right. Maybe I did. She shrugged, sipping her coffee. Still lying to my face. Still underestimating me. She had no idea that while she was sleeping off her night with him, I had already made my move. Her credit card? Frozen. Our joint savings? Emptied, legally. The deed to the house? Transferred solely to my name. She thought she was playing a game. She had no idea she was about to lose everything. The moment Madeline left for work, I headed straight to the bank. No hesitation. No second thoughts. The banker, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, scanned my ID. You're closing the joint account? Yes. Transferring all funds to my private account. She glanced at the screen. That's quite a large amount. I know, I said coolly. She nodded, typing away. It'll be done in a few minutes. I exhaled slowly, watching as the numbers on the screen shifted. With each keystroke, I was pulling the last bit of control away from Madeline. Anything else? She asked. I hesitated. Then, a thought struck me. Yes. I want to update the house deed. I want it in my name only. She frowned. You'll need your wife's approval for that. I slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a power of attorney document Madeline had signed last year, without reading it. The banker's eyebrows lifted. This gives you the authority to do it without her. I smiled. Yes. Yes, it does. 30 minutes later, I walked out of the bank feeling lighter than I had in months. Madeline had spent months planning to take everything from me. Now she had nothing. That evening, I prepared one last trap. I placed a stack of legal papers on the kitchen counter. A financial agreement. It looked like a routine refinancing document. Madeline breezed in, humming to herself. She was in a good mood. Probably thinking she'd be moving in with Trevor soon. Hey, I said casually. Can you sign this? It's just a boring refinancing thing. She barely looked at it. You always handle this stuff. I slid a pen toward her. It's just paperwork. She smiled at me, smiled as if she hadn't been sneaking around behind my back. As if she hadn't spent last night wrapped around another man. And then she signed. Just like that. The moment her pen lifted, I felt it, the final nail in her coffin. Thanks, I said smoothly. She didn't even ask what it was. Didn't even realize she had just signed away every legal right to my assets. She kissed my cheek. I'm gonna take a bath. I stood there watching her walk away. She had no idea she had just signed her own destruction. The next morning, I sat in my car outside Trevor Henshaw's house. It was a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where people watered their lawns at sunrise and waved to their neighbors. Trevor didn't belong here. And neither did the second car parked in his driveway. I narrowed my eyes. A sleek black BMW. Not Madeline's. Someone else's. I checked my watch. 6:45 a.m. Trevor was supposed to be at work by now. I leaned back thinking. Madeline had spent the night with him. At least that's what she believed. But if she had, then, who was inside right now? I waited. And then at exactly 7:03 a.m., the front door opened. Trevor stepped out, shirt unbuttoned, tie loosened. He stretched his arms, looking satisfied. And then a woman followed him. Not Madeline. She was tall, blonde, wearing a short black dress, heels in hand. She kissed him on the cheek before sliding into the BMW and driving away. I smirked. So, Trevor wasn't just cheating with my wife, he was cheating on her too. I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures. Clear. Undeniable. Proof. Madeline thought she had won. She thought Trevor was her way out, her next chapter. She had no idea she was just another name on his list. I chuckled to myself. This was going to be fun. At work, Madeline was all smiles. She was sitting at her desk, dressed in one of her fitted pencil skirts, typing away on her laptop. "Morning, babe," she said sweetly when I walked past. Like nothing had happened. Like we weren't living a lie. I sat at my own desk, watching her from across the office. She had no idea I had been at Trevor's house this morning. She had no idea that I was already 10 steps ahead of her. I opened my email. The HR department had responded to my anonymous tip about Trevor's office affair. They were launching an internal investigation. I smirked. Madeline's fantasy life was about to collapse. She had spent months sneaking around thinking she was outsmarting me. But now she was on borrowed time. That evening I sent the final piece of the puzzle. A neatly compiled email with every text, every photo, every hotel receipt. It went to Trevor's wife, a woman named Rachel Henshaw. I had debated sending it for a while. But then I thought, why should she be in the dark like I was? Rachel deserved to know that while she was at home with their kids, her husband was out destroying other marriages. I attached everything. Every betrayal. Every disgusting message. And then I hit send. 2 minutes later my phone buzzed. "Rachel Henshaw, who is this? How do you know all this?" I smiled and typed back. "Someone who thought you deserved the truth. Check your email." Another buzz. "Rachel Henshaw, oh my God. That son of a b asterisk asterisk dot asterisk asterisk." I leaned back, satisfied. Trevor had no idea. Madeline had no idea. But soon? They'd both feel the consequences of their choices. Pause here. Dear good listeners. A lot of people listen to the story but only 9% subscribe. I work hard to bring you amazing stories every day. This time, my goal is to hit 2,000 subscribers this month. So, my awesome audience, show some love. Hit that subscribe button now. And must tell me in the comment section where you are watching my videos. Thanks. Let's continue our story. Madeline came home late again. Too late. I was sitting on the couch, a glass of whiskey in my hand, staring at the clock. 1:12 a.m. The front door creaked open and she stepped inside, heels clicking against the floor. Her hair was messy, makeup slightly smudged, the telltale signs of a night she didn't want me to know about. She froze when she saw me. "Oh, you're still up." I sipped my drink, letting the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel the weight of it. She let out a small, fake laugh. "Work dinner ran late." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Did it?" She hesitated just for a second before nodding. "Yeah. You know how it is." I tilted my head, watching her. She was a terrible liar. "I do," I murmured. "Long nights. Hard work." She smiled, relaxing. "Exactly. You get it?" I set my glass down on the coffee table and stood up. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the faint scent of Trevor's cologne on her skin. Her eyes flickered with something. Nervousness? Guilt? Or did she just think she was too clever to be caught? I smiled. "By the way, I ran into Rachel Henshaw today." Her entire body stiffened. "Rachel? Trevor's wife?" I nodded. "She's a nice woman. Did you know Trevor is married?" Madeline's face drained of color. Checkmate. She tried to recover. Tried to play it off. "Oh yeah. I mean, I heard something about that," she stammered, turning away to set down her purse. I watched her carefully. She was lying. And she was panicking. "Funny thing," I continued, my voice cool. "Rachel had some interesting things to say about Trevor." Madeline's fingers twitched. She got an anonymous email. Madeline whipped around so fast it was almost comical. "What?" I kept my expression neutral. "She found out about his affairs." A flicker of fear crossed her face. "Affairs?" I nodded. "Plural." She tried to laugh but it sounded forced. "That's ridiculous. Trevor's not." "He is," I interrupted. "And he's not just sleeping with you." Silence. Madeline opened her mouth, but no words came out. I walked toward her slowly. You thought he was different, didn't you? She shook her head. No. You thought he was your future. I chuckled. Got Madeline. You're not even his priority. She swallowed hard, looking away. Her mind was racing. I leaned in slightly. Rachel's divorcing him. Her breath hitched. Oh, and one more thing, I added. Trevor's company found out about his workplace romance. He's under investigation. Madeline's entire body tensed. That's not possible. It was. And it was only the beginning. The next morning, the real panic began. Madeline was getting ready for work, pulling on a navy blue blazer when her phone buzzed. She frowned at the screen. Then her expression twisted into something between confusion and anger. What the hell? She muttered. I watched her from the kitchen, sipping my coffee. Something wrong? She didn't look up. My card just got declined. I raised an eyebrow. That's weird. She tried again, tapping the screen furiously. Then, with growing frustration, she called the bank. The conversation went exactly how I expected. What do you mean my account is frozen? She snapped. There must be a mistake. Pause. I'm the primary holder, she argued. Pause. And then, the moment it hit her, her face turned pale. Her lips parted slightly. What do you mean the primary holder changed? I smiled into my coffee mug. Oh, sweetheart. You should have read the fine print. She hung up, whirling toward me. Logan. Yes. Her hands clenched into fists. Did you touch our accounts? I feigned confusion. Our accounts? She gritted her teeth. Don't play dumb. The money, where is it? I shrugged. No idea. Maybe you should check with Trevor. Maybe he can cover your bills now. Her breathing was sharp and uneven. You're lying. You did something. You. I set my mug down. I did nothing, Madeline. You just assumed you'd always have access to my money. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. She knew. She knew she had messed up. And for the first time in months she looked afraid. Madeline was unraveling, and I could see it. She sat stiffly at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, chewing her lip. Trevor wasn't answering. Her fingers tapped rapidly against the screen as she sent another message. Hey babe. Call me ASAP. Something weird is going on. Weird how? I wondered if she meant the frozen bank accounts, her credit card getting declined, or Trevor suddenly ghosting her. I watched her, sipping my coffee, pretending to be absorbed in the morning news. This was the beginning of her downfall, and she had no idea how much worse it was going to get. She finally slammed her phone down in frustration. I have to go, she muttered, grabbing her bag. Big day. I asked, keeping my tone light. She shot me a glare, her patience wearing thin. Something came up at work. She was going to see Trevor. As soon as she left, I followed. I stayed a few cars behind her, my hand steady on the wheel. I had already anticipated this moment, the confrontation, the panic, the chaos. She pulled up to Trevor's apartment complex and rushed inside. I parked across the street, leaning back in my seat. Showtime. It didn't take long. Within minutes I heard the shouting, her voice shrill and accusing, his defensive and annoyed. And then, the door burst open. Madeline stormed out, her face red with fury, eyes wild. Trevor followed, shirt unbuttoned, and behind him, the blonde woman I saw leaving his house earlier. Busted. I rolled down my window just a little, just enough to hear her scream, "You're cheating on me?" Trevor shrugged. Relax, Mads. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. She looked like she wanted to kill him. This was the moment she realized she had been played. I let out a slow breath. One down. One more to go. I expected her to come home furious. Instead, she came home broken. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup ruined. She dumped her bag onto the floor and sank onto the couch, staring at the wall. I stood in the doorway watching. She didn't even acknowledge me. After a long silence, I said, "Rough day?" She let out a hollow laugh. "You could say that." I walked over and sat across from her, resting my elbows on my knees. I wanted to savor this moment. "So," I said slowly, "Trevor, huh?" Her eyes flicked up, filled with bitterness. "You knew." I shrugged. "You were so busy playing your little games, Madeline, you didn't stop to think that maybe you were getting played too." She swallowed hard. She had no defense left. For the first time she looked defeated. Then she said the words I had been waiting for. I made a mistake. I let that hang in the air. A mistake. A mistake was forgetting an anniversary. A mistake was misplacing your keys. This was a betrayal. I leaned back. Too late for that. She stared at me, tears pooling in her eyes. Logan, I held up a hand. Save it. She blinked, shocked at the finality in my voice. I pulled out my phone, scrolled for a moment, and then turned the screen toward her. It was the divorce papers. I'm done, I said. Sign these by the end of the week. Or I'll make things even worse for you. She gasped. Worse? I smiled, slow and cold. Oh, Madeline. You have no idea how much more you have to lose. Madeline must have thought I was bluffing. 2 days later, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table, divorce papers untouched. I'm not signing this, she said, arms crossed. I raised an eyebrow. Why not? She lifted her chin. Because this is my house too. I laughed. The sheer audacity of this woman. No, Madeline. It's not. I pulled a document from my briefcase and dropped it in front of her. This is the new deed. Your name's not on it anymore. Her lips parted slightly. That's not possible. It is when you sign over your rights, I said smoothly. Remember that document I had you sign last week? You really should read things before putting your name on them. Her face turned pale. She knew. I could see the panic in her eyes. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages, reading legal jargon she didn't understand. You tricked me, she whispered. I leaned down, inches from her face. No, Madeline. You tricked yourself. She swallowed hard, her breath coming in short gasps. I don't have anywhere to go. I shrugged. Not my problem. Tears spilled over her cheeks. You can't do this to me. Oh, but I can. Her phone rang. She snatched it up, eyes hopeful. But when she saw the name on the screen, her expression crumbled. Trevor. She answered, voice shaking. Trevor, I didn't hear what he said. But I didn't need to. Her face said it all. Trevor was done with her. The phone slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. She looked up at me, truly broken for the first time. Logan, please. I picked up the divorce papers and placed them in front of her. Sign them, I said coldly. Or pack your bags right now. Madeline didn't sign the papers that night. Instead, she locked herself in the bedroom that was no longer hers, and made desperate calls. To her friends, to her family, and most importantly, to Trevor. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, listening. Trevor, you don't understand. Logan is kicking me out. I have nowhere to go. Pause. Then her voice grew shrill. He wasn't saying what she wanted to hear. Wait, what do you mean I can't stay with you? Silence. Then lower, pleading. Trevor, please. I left my husband for you. I almost laughed at the irony. She destroyed our marriage thinking Trevor was her escape. But now, he was leaving her in the dust. Her breath hitched. You have who over? Another woman? And then the final dagger. This was just fun, Madeline. You knew that. You were never wife material. The sob that left her was guttural. I turned and walked away. I didn't need to hear the rest. I had already won. The next morning, Madeline sat at the kitchen table, hollow-eyed and pale. I placed a steaming cup of coffee in front of her. She didn't even look up. Rough night? I asked casually. She let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through her tangled hair. You heard. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Every word. Her fingers tapped against the table. I lost everything, Logan. I set my cup down. You threw everything away. She finally met my gaze, and for the first time in months, her eyes weren't filled with arrogance or lies. They were filled with something else, fear. What am I supposed to do? She whispered. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. Sign the papers. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. And if I don't? I smiled. Then you have 24 hours to leave. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No regret. You never really loved me, did you? She choked out. I raised an eyebrow. That's rich coming from you. She sucked in a breath, but I didn't let her respond. You have until tomorrow, Madeline, I said, standing. Then you're gone. Madeline didn't go to work that day. Instead, she went straight to her best friend, Vanessa. I knew this because Vanessa called me 30 minutes later. "Logan, what the hell is going on?" she demanded the moment I answered. Madeline just showed up at my apartment sobbing. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. "Why don't you ask her?" Vanessa hesitated. "She said you drained the accounts, took her name off the house, and, Logan, is this true?" I stayed silent. She sighed. "Look, I know she messed up, but don't you think this is a little harsh?" I let out a low chuckle. She spent months lying to me, betraying me, screwing another man behind my back. "But yeah, Vanessa, let's talk about what's harsh." Vanessa exhaled. "I get it, but she's completely broken. She has nowhere to go. Not my problem." She said she still loves you," Vanessa added quietly. I went still. Then I laughed. Loud. Sure. Cold. "She loved me?" I echoed. "That's funny. She didn't seem very in love when she was sneaking off to hotels." Vanessa was silent for a long time. Then finally she sighed. "I won't push. But Logan, don't let this destroy you too." "Destroy me?" I repeated, amused. "No, Vanessa. This is me finally winning." I hung up before she could say anything else. Madeline hadn't left the apartment all day. She sat curled on the couch, staring blankly at her phone. The makeup she had applied that morning was now smudged from tears. Her hair was a mess, her normally sharp confidence now shattered. Then her phone rang. She grabbed it instantly. Hope flickered in her eyes. Maybe it was Trevor. Maybe he had changed his mind. But when she saw the caller ID, her face twisted in confusion. "This is Madeline," she answered hesitantly. I sipped my coffee from the kitchen, watching. "Madeline," the voice on the other end said, stern and professional. "This is HR. We need to discuss some concerns regarding your workplace conduct." She blinked. "My what?" "There have been some reports regarding an inappropriate relationship with a fellow employee." Madeline's mouth opened slightly. Who said that?" "That's confidential. We'd like you to come in this afternoon for a formal meeting." Her grip on the phone tightened. "This is ridiculous. Refusing to cooperate could result in termination." I watched as panic fully bloomed across her face. This was it. The moment she realized that her world was crumbling from every angle. And the best part? She still had no idea I was the one pulling the strings. 3 hours later, Madeline stormed into my home office. Her eyes were wild. "You did this," she spat. I barely glanced up from my laptop. "Did what?" "Don't play dumb, Logan. HR just put me on suspension. Someone told them about me and Trevor." I leaned back in my chair, raising an eyebrow. "You mean your secret affair? The one you thought no one knew about?" She flinched, her breathing erratic. "You reported me." I shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not." She shook her head. "You're destroying my life." I let out a cold chuckle. "No, Madeline. You did that all on your own. I'm just watching it burn." Tears welled in her eyes. "You don't have to do this." I stood up, closing the space between us. I wanted her to feel just how powerless she had become. "You want mercy?" I murmured. "Where was your mercy when you were lying to my face every night?" She swallowed hard. I leaned in slightly. "I trusted you, Madeline. I loved you. And you threw it all away for a man who didn't even care about you." She sucked in a breath, shoulders shaking. She knew it was true. But I wasn't done yet. I gestured to the divorce papers on my desk. "Sign them." Her lips trembled. "You have until tomorrow," I said coldly. "Or I promise you losing your job will be the least of your problems." She didn't sleep that night. I knew because I heard her moving around, pacing the bedroom she once shared with me. The next morning when I came downstairs, she was already at the kitchen table. Dark circles under her eyes. Wrinkled clothes. The divorce papers sat in front of her. Still unsigned. I sighed. "Madeline." "Wait," she said suddenly, looking up. Her voice was different. Softer. I frowned. "What?" She took a shaky breath. "I made a mistake." I stared at her, waiting. She swallowed hard. I lost myself. I don't know why I did what I did. But I love you, Logan. I never stopped loving you." I tilted my head slightly, watching her break down in front of me. "I was selfish. I was stupid. But please, her voice cracked. We can fix this. A long silence stretched between us. Then I let out a low chuckle. She flinched. I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table. You don't love me, Madeline? Her breath hitched. I do. No, I said, cutting her off. You loved what I gave you. The house, the security, the easy life. But me? I shook my head. You never loved me. Her face crumbled. That's not true. I picked up the pen and pushed it toward her. Sign. The papers. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But I felt nothing. No pity. No regret. Only satisfaction. She reached for the pen with trembling fingers. And then, she signed. The air in the house was heavy with silence. Not the comfortable kind we used to share. The silence of lazy Sunday mornings, of quiet nights curled up on the couch. No, this silence was thick with finality. Madeline sat across from me at the kitchen table, her shoulders slumped, her eyes swollen from crying. The divorce papers lay between us, signed and sealed. There was nothing left to say. I watched her, waiting for her to speak. But for the first time in our marriage, she had no excuses. No manipulation. No fake charm. Just raw, unfiltered loss. Her lips parted. So, what happens now? I exhaled slowly. You pack your things. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table. Logan, I held up a hand, cutting her off. No. No more talking. No more begging. You made your choice, Madeline. And now, you live with it. Her breath hitched and she looked down at her lap. She was ashamed. Good. I stood up and grabbed my keys. You have until tonight to be out. She blinked up at me, panic flashing in her eyes. Tonight? Logan, I don't have anywhere to go. I shrugged. Not my problem. Her hands trembled. Please, just give me a few days. Just let me figure something out. I shook my head, walking toward the door. You didn't give me time to figure things out when you were sneaking behind my back, did you? She sucked in a sharp breath, looking like I had slapped her. I stepped out, slamming the door behind me. This was it. The end. And I felt nothing but relief. I drove with the windows down, the cool air hitting my face. For the first time in months, I felt free. No more deception. No more late-night arguments. No more pretending to be a fool while my wife destroyed everything we built. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. Marcus Hayes. My lawyer. I put him on speaker. Talk to me. Everything's finalized, he said. The house is legally yours, your accounts are untouched, and thanks to the documents she so kindly signed without reading, she gets nothing. I smirked. Perfect. And Trevor? I asked. Marcus chuckled. Fired. And facing legal action for workplace misconduct. His wife filed for divorce this morning. I let out a low laugh. Trevor Henshaw had lost everything too. It was poetic. And Madeline? Marcus asked. I paused, gripping the steering wheel. She's finished, I said simply. Good, Marcus said. You deserve a fresh start, Logan. A fresh start. I ended the call and drove toward the new chapter of my life. I got home later that evening, expecting to find Madeline gone. Instead, she was sitting on the couch, a packed suitcase beside her. She stood when she saw me, her fingers twisting nervously. I just wanted to say something before I go. I crossed my arms. Make it quick. She took a shaky breath. I know I ruined everything. I stayed silent. She swallowed. But I loved you, Logan. I did. I don't know why I did what I did. I scoffed. Because you thought you could have it all. And now, you have nothing. Her bottom lip trembled. I don't want to leave like this. I tilted my head. And how exactly do you think this should end? She hesitated. Maybe we can talk. Maybe. I shook my head. No. There is no maybe anymore, Madeline. You lost me. Her breath hitched and her hands curled into fists. So that's it, she whispered. Just like that. I met her gaze, my voice cold. Just like that. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. She reached for her suitcase, gripping the handle with shaking fingers. Goodbye, Logan. She walked to the door, pausing only for a second. Then she stepped out, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. Part 1 ends here. Madeline lost everything, her affair, her money, her home, and the life she thought she had under control. Logan didn't just walk away, he won. And Trevor? Destroyed, divorced, and jobless. But is this truly the end? Or is there more karma waiting to strike? Part 2 is just getting started, and trust me, it's going to be even wilder. If you love this story so far, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of Logan's revenge, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.